everyone, John Henry here, slingshotfutures.com, and welcome to the Market Mindset, where we take a look at the moves today and the psychology behind them so that we can better understand tomorrow. And today, I was originally going to do a different market, but this last move on crude made it way too appealing to not talk about. Lots of interesting stuff happened right inside here, and definitely something that I want to talk about. So, overall, looking at the market psychology today on crude, we opened up gap down. Yesterday had a relatively bullish start to the day, and then it just kind of fell apart. We opened up gap lower. They weren't able to finish that move off to the prior high a day. Chances are now that, depending on how we open up, we may be looking for either A, a buyer pullback to buy in cheaper to run higher back to finish the job, or B, looking for a big sell move down and getting continuation. So what do we get? Well, that first candle of the day kind of put the nail in the coffin, didn't it? It made it pretty obvious what the market wanted to do here. Very aggressively bearish candle. Now, the overall momentum to the downside, you can see there's no even wick on the top, just a complete brick top candle. And that tells you that as soon as that candle opened up, the market was sold. Not a limit order, market orders, right? Everyone was selling the market like crazy. A limit order needs to tick through to get filled more often than not. Sometimes you can get lucky and get filled at the highs, but most of the time, that's not going to happen. So in this situation, we open up brick top candle, massively bearish all the way down. The sellers own this market. I'm not a huge fan of selling or buying or doing anything on the first candle of the day, but in the context, that is a really good sell signal to get the market going further down. Now, after we got that big drop lower, we see good continuation, right? And a lot of sellers will wait to see this. They're a little bit hesitant to sell the first candle of the day or do anything on the first candle of the day. But when it proves itself and it follows through with a strong second candle of the day and then a really weak bull third candle of the day, more likely than not, all the buyers are going to be able to do is to get maybe a range in here and then look for a continuation. As long as a high of this doesn't break, sellers are going to be selling everything they can get their hands on, provided there's no strong, massive bullish signal. Now, we go a little bit further and we start seeing more and more semblance of a range. There was a tiny little wedge that formed right here. Nice little break out of that for more continued selling. The one thing to keep in mind here is that anywhere that you're selling inside here, doesn't matter where you're selling, whether you're selling the top of that big bull breakout, whether you're selling down here, doesn't matter. Your stop needs to go above the highs because that's the line in the sand. And that basically tells us that, well, as long as that's not broken, we're good to go. It's a lot of risk, but if your account can sustain that kind of risk, that's where it should technically go. The reason I say should, and the reason why we mentioned that in the first place, if, let's say, you were a little nervous, you can't sustain that amount of risk on your account, but you get in anyway, well, first of all, that's strike number one, but without getting into that, you're going to get nervous, and a lot of traders will, and what they'll do is they'll see this big bull breakout, and they'll immediately lock their stops in. Now, you'll notice what happened, right? We continued the range, and then, boop, popped them right out, and then immediately dumped the, 40, 50, 60 ticks to the downside. That's why you don't move your stop based on emotion. It has to be off of technicals. If you're moving it emotionally, you're going to get whipped out of the trade. That's just the way that the market is. It's a vindictive little thing that we deal with here every day. And as long as you're trading it correctly, you were treated well. So we had a nice bear breakout potential to drive in, a big bull breakout move, but one key thing in why there's a sell arrow here, the sellers who sold bar one, that first candle of the day, it couldn't close above their entry point. And when it did, it immediately pushed back down. That shows that the sellers are defending their entry point. That's a very good thing. That's a nice bearish indication that we're going to see some continuation. You'll notice that level held all morning, right? Another reaction there, another reaction here, a big stop run top, couldn't even close past it before pushing down. So lots and lots of interest off of that level. Arguably, if you don't mind selling a bull candle, there could be a sell signal there too. So with all of these sells coming off of the same area, this final one right here, this is the one that really made me want to talk about crude oil today because that is a very interesting little scenario that happened inside here. Now, you can't see it on the 5-minute chart, okay? On the 5-minute chart, just a big bear candle. Whoop-de-doo. Great. Awesome, right? It kicked off the big move down. We actually talked about it in the chat room and grabbed a good 30, 40 tick runner out of it. Really nice drop. But in this type of situation, wait a minute, right? The reason why I want to bring this up in the first place is not only is it an obvious sell signal to sell underneath, but what makes it so beautiful is what happened the final seconds before that candle closed. To be able to see that, we're going to have to go to a faster time frame. This is a 10-second chart, okay? A 10-second chart, very fast. And arguably, this happened in the last 1 or 2 seconds of the day, okay? So let me go in here and I'll change this so that we can see it a little bit better. We'll go 1 second chart, and we're only going to load 1 day of data because that is a ton of data. And we're going to go over to where that circle is. Now, the reason why I have this marked, right? Let's zoom out a little bit here. This is where the circle was on the 10-second chart. Do you notice something strange here? Right? All of the sudden, at the very end of the candle, this was a fairly neutral candle. Remember, 5-minute chart, right? The candle started here, and literally a second before the candle closes, you get this massive drive lower. Essentially, what happened is all of the buyers gave up the ghost. They said, all right, you know what? This is the end of the 5-minute candle, just so you know. And I mean, literally, what is that? 5 seconds before the candle closes, boom, 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 gets slammed down at the very end. And essentially, again, that's the buyers giving up. They realize, wait a minute, we just got screwed on the highs. I got to get out of this before it goes. And we even made mention of it in the chat room. Holy smokes, did you see that final few seconds of the candle? The buyers are screwed. And if they didn't exit, well, they were met with this follow through. So that's why I wanted to talk about it, because that final burst, if you're not watching the charts very closely, you missed it. And that added a huge amount of emphasis of why we wanted to sell there in the first place. Not only was it a trap high, we know that the seller stops are still firmly above here, perfectly safe, nice and far away. And with that little flush at the very end of the candle, that sealed the deal. The sellers are going to slam this. And they dunked it all the way down. Huge move to the downside and just a phenomenal day of trading. So that's going to wrap this one up. Great day of trading with a mix of market psychology along with technicals, and that final little few seconds of the candle really sealed the deal there on that final move, and that's going to do it. So enjoy the weekend, everyone. Hopefully you found this useful. Hopefully you found it interesting and maybe a little entertaining, and we will see you on Monday.